Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Mental Health Impact Series show. Today is season 2 and episode 18. I can't believe we're already on episode 18 of our second season. Today, we have a very special guest with us, and we will be talking about mental health among cancer survivors, turning pain into purpose. Before we get started, let's talk about some common facts. It is estimated that up to 1/3 of people treated for cancer in hospitals have a common mental health condition. Did you know, according to Mental Health America, anywhere from 8 to 24% of people with cancer are also living with depression? Did you know a staggering 54% of people with a mental illness do not access any treatment? Even though about 3 in 4 of those who access a mental health inpatient service sees improvement. Without any further ado, let's welcome Teresa Alesch from, right now she's in Iowa, right? Beautiful. Teresa is a life after cancer coach and also a school principal. Teresa's story is powerful, and so is the story of each woman feeling smothered by cancer's shadow, who act on her own power to step out from behind the shadow of cancer to live her life to the fullest. Teresa served in the field of education for 16 years as a teacher, athletic coach, and administrator. She is trained and certified in a variety of life coach arenas, and she is making it official as a board certified strategic intervention coach. Woo, you go, Teresa. Teresa supports the work of the American Cancer Society, making strides and stand up to cancer. Without any further ado, welcome to our show today. How are you doing?
I'm doing so good. Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be on this channel, this show, this podcast. You are doing amazing work, and I'm so excited to be a part of it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Teresa, for those kind words. If you don't mind me asking, how did you hear about Reach Out Together and this Mental Health Impact Series show?
Well, Clubhouse has introduced me to so many people, and it was one of those things that I resisted for a while. But I was in a room, and I can't even remember which room it was, telling my story. And the next thing I knew, Ankita and I were having a conversation and taking that, to a different platform. And yeah, and now I'm learning about all the work you're doing. And I'm just, like I said, it's exciting what you're doing and the awareness that you're bringing, because it's stepping out from behind the shadow for so many people.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that, Teresa.
Yeah.
Could you speak a little bit about your journey and what really brought you here today to talk about mental health and raise awareness for so many people?
You bet. Wow. My journey begins in 2011. I was diagnosed with stage 3C breast cancer, and it was an aggressive estrogen driven cancer. And so we started out right away with chemotherapy. And from there, I had the surgery, a double mastectomy surgery and reconstruction. And what happened there that day was unreal for me. My dad was in the same hospital, and he was being diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, stage 4. And so when I came out of surgery, that was, the one of the first things I was wondering was what's going on with dad. And from there, I had radiation, and this is about a 9-month span.
Mhm.
And when I graduated And I tend to say this when I'm telling my story, but when I rang that bell, I walked out thinking, oh my, it's time. I'm going to get back to my life the way it was. And, just there's that excitement, that feeling of victory. And I quickly discovered that there was another battle waiting for me on the other side of walking out of that cancer center, on the other side of ringing that bell. And it came in the form of fatigue and maybe a little bit less resilience for stress, for the oncoming stress that you have that's normal in life. And then just your typical body aches and pains. And Christmas time, I was in pain, and it was in my abdomen area, and it was unbelievable. The next thing I knew, I was being asked to take off another 6 weeks, and they wanted to I basically have an emergency hysterectomy, and they found tumors in my ovaries, the size of a grapefruit, a giant grapefruit, basically. And so at this point, I'm 32 years old. I was 31 when I was diagnosed. And I went in, I had to kind of sign my life away that, if I have this surgery, or if they go in and they find something that's suspicious, they're going to take everything, and that means no more children. And so at the time I thought, well, I am blessed with two. I have a little girl and a little boy, and the boy he came without planning. And so it was almost a godsend, he gave me two beautiful children, but they took everything. There was, a lot of suspicious, abnormal activity with the cells and the tumors. And so I was in menopause at 32, and that's kind of a whole new avenue for women to face. One, it just, for some, it happens gradually. For me, it was an onslaught of hormone changes, actually stripping me of estrogen, period, So I basically woke up having hot flashes. And those were pretty crazy. They almost drive you they almost drive you insane. So whenever someone who's in menopause, they immediately relate to that feeling of having a hot flash when and are you familiar with hot flashes yet?
I am. My mother went through something similar when I was 8 years old, so I witnessed her journey after that. And even when she would talk about it, I think the public wasn't very aware of, when she's speaking and seeing that she's having hot flashes, what that truly entailed.
Right. Right. So
Could you
yes,
speak a bit more just to create some awareness?
absolutely. So a hot flash or a hot flush, depending on, where you're at, um, basically it feels like you start to burn from the inside of your body out. And for me, it starts in the chest area and in the back, and you break out and it's not your typical type of sweat. Like if you're working out, it's just in a matter of seconds you're drenched, and you'll be sweating up here. And I think what was hard for me is when I went back to work, and I would have 4 or 5 an hour, and at night it stopped me from sleeping because and I'm a light sleeper, but I would be falling asleep, and then I would just be hot to the point where you just feel like you have to rip off everything, including your skin. um, and so I would take a few sets of clothes with me to work because I would drench my clothes having these hot flashes. And there's an element of humiliation with that. And then there's just the feeling of it that just, it almost makes you angry, because if you're overheated, you get agitated. And so that's how I would describe that feeling. And it took me a while to kind of get that under control. They added a bunch of medication to help, like blood pressure medication helps with hot flashes. And so then with everything you add, there's a side effect. And so then, you might be battling more fatigue to offset the symptom itself. And so when you start adding all that stuff, it makes a difference. And then I guess to keep going, a year from my diagnosis, we lost a loved one, and it was my Uncle Joe. And this man I was super close. I grew up going to his house when I was mad at mom and dad, and he was kind of a big kid. He was my mom's youngest brother of 6. And he would take me to a lot of my appointments because my parents were working and my husband was working. And so we would spend a lot of time sitting in my big picture window, or in my living room, looking out the big picture window, And a kind of a funny part of my story is there was this bird that would land on my car, nobody else's, just my car. And it was a beautiful red cardinal. And sorry to the viewers, but this bird would poop on my rear view mirror. And it was always my passenger side. And it was just a running joke within our family that this bird just always landed on my vehicle. And my uncle passed away with from a massive heart attack. And it was like, it was just one of those things where, you know, one minute someone's here, oh boy, and the next minute they're gone. And it's kind of a reminder for us all to remember that we don't know what tomorrow holds. We don't know what 5 minutes from now holds. And it's so important to cherish and value the minute we're in, which is kind of where my story, there's a fork. And I started going through the motions after that. I kind of lived in this numbness. And I always tell people that I put on my superhero mask and my cape for my students and my staff and our community. And, you know, all they saw was this poised principal who was resilient and strong. And I felt that, but yet deep down, there was this battle that I was not acknowledging that was happening. And a good year and a half, I think, later, I started to question my life. And all I could think about was that I wasn't a good parent for my kids. I wasn't a good wife for my husband. I wasn't a good principal for our school system because I never felt like I was there in the moment. I would, and I'm sure many people can relate to this, but, you know, I would go to work, my body would go to work, and my mind, my heart would travel home. And it would be thinking about all the things I didn't get done, or the time I didn't spend with my kids because I sat on the couch with my laptop open working. And then then I wouldn't be getting things done properly at work. And then I would go home and my heart and my mind would travel to work. And so the way I speak of this is that we're caught in the past, you know, our regrets, or we're caught in our future worries, thinking about the things that we need to do, instead of being right here in this moment. And because of that, it allowed those villains, or those dark shadows, to start to overcome me and convince me that there's a better mom for my kids. There's a better principal for my students, a better wife for my husband. And of course, you can't replace a daughter. And that's one of those things I didn't think through. But I decided one morning after a snowstorm, I had these 4 days with my kids that could have been just the best time. Educators like snow days just as much as the students do when we have to stay home. But I realized when it was time to go back to work that I wasted that entire time and I couldn't remember anything. I knew I fed them, you know, I knew I gave them shelter, but I wasn't there with them. And I did what I call it in I later wrote a book, but I call it the last hug. I took them to daycare and I gave them that last hug. They had no idea it was the last hug, but I was going to make sure they remembered it. And I went home that day and decided this is it. And the irony here is I hate medicine. I hate taking it. On pain meds, I would get right off of them after surgeries, but I had enough pills, you know, I had more than enough for many people. And I decided I was going to go in my car and just slowly, gradually slip away through pills. And in that moment, and it's a span, I cover it in depth in my book. I write out every thought that I remember having, and it was so vivid. I could almost probably sit down and write it again, because I still recall what my brain was trying to convince myself of. And as I was there, I did take a round or two. And as I was preparing to take another round, that bird, which had been gone, and this is one of those things I also write about in my book, that bird disappeared after my uncle passed away. And sometimes I wondered, okay, is it me? Am I just not seeing beauty anymore? Am I not seeing color anymore? But my husband's like, nope, that bird was gone. And that bird came back and it landed on that passenger rearview mirror. And I thought, now, you know, because it's not that I don't believe in, I'm very spiritual. I'm raised Catholic, but it's like I don't necessarily believe in signs. And that bird landed, and I paused. I'm like, and I just kind of had this feeling wash over me. But then the bird flew away, and I thought, okay, I just made that up in my head. That did not happen. There's no way that happened. And then as I'm preparing for that next round, this time, and this bird never landed on the driver's side, but it landed on the driver's side, and it was like time stopped for me, and oh, this warmness rushed over me. And again, I think it was just me coming to the back to reality. And I'm like, what am I doing? And from there, I threw myself out of my car, and I'm not good at throwing up, but I did it, made it happen. I've never done that before. And that kind of, from there forward, it's been a battle, it's been, yeah, it's been a battle. Yeah, that's, that's the gist. I mean, that's the gist of my story up to that breaking point, which is broken, which is where the title of my story comes from.
That's so beautiful. Thank you so much, Teresa, for sharing that so authentically and keeping it so real. I can't even begin to imagine in that moment what, like, in real time when you're experiencing those emotions, one thing coming in your sight changed the environment in what you were living in and made you choose a different response.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's so powerful.
Something else I remember thinking, in this area we've had some suicides, and I remember thinking back when I was more healthy, how could someone leave their family like that? Are they not thinking about the pain that their family, that void that will create, and then the generational pain that will happen as a result of that one decision? And I remember, it's not that I judged, but I just couldn't understand. But
Yeah.
as we start to go on that journey ourselves, it's like you lose your reality, your grounding and your understanding of everything else around you, and your mind starts to rationalize in ways that you can't predict that you're capable of. And I think that awareness, that being in the present moment, and I became so passionate about that after that, because if I had been in the present moment, if I had had some strategies to just stop and listen and look and feel, and then just be true to myself, like just admit that I'm struggling. Oh man, it would have been a little bit of a different path um, for me, and I wouldn't have had to get to that breaking point. And even after that, the stigma is so real because I didn't want to tell my family what really happened that day. They knew something happened. They knew I had a breaking point, but they didn't know it was to that level. They knew I was questioning and just at this point where I couldn't handle things anymore. And I even went and I checked myself into a behavioral health center.
Oh, you
And
did.
I did, but I ended up checking myself right out because the first thing they were going to do was use medication.
Medication.
And there's nothing wrong with that at all. But for me, I thought I just knew that I could do it on my own because I had reached that point of this understanding that I had to be aware. I had to acknowledge the pain, and I had to feel the pain for the first time. I don't know that I really cried for my own cancer. I cried for my uncle, but after I cried that day, I didn't let another tear fall. Um, and I had this. I wanted to be strong for everyone, and I ended up they hooked me up with a therapist, and he was phenomenal. He was a career and family therapist. And I had been writing through everything. I wrote for my students. They created a Team Alesch Facebook page so that I could keep them updated. And when he passed away, I just faded away from writing. And
Mm-hmm.
my therapist had said, what about journaling? And I was like, no, I don't need to journal. And I didn't even know I was doing it. And he knew at that point that he had found something. And so he asked me again in another way, and I can't remember the exact words, but I broke down, and it was so wonderful. I can still feel that release when I say that out loud. And he had said, you don't have to write about you. You could write about something else or someone else. You could write a fiction story. And that was my breakthrough. I started to write a fiction story, and it was someone like me, but I beat the heck out of her, and I made her resilient and process things. And then I turned that into my own story, and that was huge. That was huge.
I just have to take some time here to commend you, Teresa. Your journey has been it's been something, and you have persevered in every stage of your life. And I know that's not easy, but
Mhm.
it's a choice that we make actively every single day. And you being here just goes to show the strength that's in us. Thank you. We have a lot of comments that have been coming in, so I'm just going to quickly read them. Um, this brings me to, sorry, we don't know what tomorrow holds. It's so important to cherish and value the minute we're in.
Yeah.
Thank you, Teresa. That's such a valuable reminder for anyone looking after their mental health.
Mhm.
Another comment: what an awesome person. Teresa really articulates so well why it's important to value each moment we have in the present.
Mhm.
So thought provoking. Thank you. Another comment: whoa, I felt each and every word. More power to you, Teresa. Truly
Aw.
thankful for you. And it is true. Like, I think we never know what message, reaches to who.
Mhm.
I personally am very grateful for you being here, Teresa, and being so authentic and sharing that. It must have been hard. Reach Out Together Foundation itself was built after I lost my twin brother, the
Mhm.
Shar to suicide. This July 12th, that's coming up, would mark 5 years since his passing. And I think it's important to hear from people who were on the cusp while they were having suicidal ideations, and how did they actively, in the very present moment, change their thought process that resulted in a different response.
Mhm.
I'm so grateful for you for being here, Teresa. It means so much to me personally. This is such a gift as we're approaching World Reach Out Together Day. Ever since his passing, we've been celebrating that day, which is July 12th, as World Reach Out Together Day. We have transformed that day into a day where we're raising awareness now globally. I will love for you to be a part of that event, Teresa. I'm seeing it right now, right here. We'll talk about that more. It's held this year on Clubhouse. It's an 8-hour event split up by 4 panel discussions.
Mhm.
So maybe the audience will get to see you there on Clubhouse.
Yay. Absolutely.
Perfect. We'll talk more about that. That brings me to my next question. I'm very, very intrigued. Could you speak a bit more about your book?
I can. Yes. So my book, it is, it's got something on the cover. It is Broken to Brave, Finding Freedom from the Unlived Life. And again, that goes to the awareness, the subtitle, Finding Freedom from the Unlived Life, when we're caught sort of in this prison of unawareness. It's an unlived life. I mean, our bodies are here, but nothing else. And the broken to brave is just, it's being brave is, it's a daily activity. It's not something that you reach and then you're there. It's deciding every day. We have a choice when we wake up. It's a new day, and we have a choice how we're going to face that day and how we're going to use our time. And initially, when I wrote it incorporates my story, going back to when I used to write little blogs for blog articles for my students. And so it's a combination of that journey along the way. Just, it's real, it's true, exactly what I was writing in the moment. There were more private journals that I would write that I didn't want my students to know quite the depth of the pain that I felt. And then there were doctor's notes. And then there's kind of when I reached this point, that breaking point, then there's the journey back to where I was as a school administrator, as a parent, and someone who wanted people to have some tools, some ways to process their own pain, some ways to turn their pain into purpose. And even when I finished this book, I didn't quite have a grasp on what my purpose was, and I'm still, I mean, as humans, we're always learning and growing and trying to figure out who we are, why we're here. I do believe that we are here to serve a greater purpose. And now I think I'm getting close to that. Whether it's through this book and kind of helping people to understand that life after cancer, and not for everyone. I want to say that I know that some have different experiences, but for many, they find that second battle waiting for them. And they're like, well, this is just the way it's supposed to be. This must be how life is after cancer. And they don't necessarily question it to the level that I started questioning it. And their doctors, I mean, they're there for them, but they have to move on and focus on that next fight with that next patient. And so it's like there's this gap in healthcare after cancer, and we are failing to rebuild cancer survivors' health, physically, cognitively, emotionally, even spiritually. And I think that I actually need to write another book, because now that I've started to figure that side of it out, we just need to raise the awareness. There's awareness of before cancer, right? There's awareness of prevention. There's awareness of cancer detection. There's awareness of the fight. But up until recently, when I started speaking out,
Yeah.
I've never heard of life after cancer issues. I mean, people go back and you think they get their lives back, but there's a battle. It's whether it's fatigue or aches and pains or lymphedema. There's a lot of things they have to work through, and it's really hard on their own. And for me, a whole nother story for another day, I ended up with breast implant illness. And that almost took my life, because my body rejected them and we didn't know it. And had there been better after cancer care, I feel like we could have found it more quickly, and dealt with it the way it should have been dealt with. And so it wasn't until 2019 when I got those removed, and it was like a miracle overnight. I was gray, I was ashen, I was like a blowfish. I was really a lot of inflammation and overnight. And I believe that kind of impacted my mental health, the way it was, the implants were affecting me. And when you think about that, again, it goes back to awareness. If we're not aware of the various things that we are coming across or putting in our bodies, we might not know that they're actually causing us, whether it's depression or anxiety or, whichever mental illness that it is that we might be facing in that moment.
Absolutely. You rightly said it. I think awareness is the first step. Everything stems from awareness. Reach Out Together was founded to create awareness for different topics, different things that impact our life. And this is something that has been coming more and more to light, right, Teresa?
Mm-hmm.
I had not heard about breast implant illness until I would say about 3 months ago, when it's, there are more and more people that are now raising awareness about it, breaking that stigma and trying to help other women. Mm-hmm. I feel like we can go on chatting about this, because there's so much here that we can continue to raise awareness about. But I do want to ask you this, Teresa, as a life after cancer coach, what is your mission?
Well, first, it's to raise the awareness of life after cancer, and to help the survivors understand that they can take back the power. I talk about, because I'm an author and a ghostwriter, I talk about taking back that pen and writing that next chapter. Cancer doesn't have to be the author of your story. You can take back that pen and you can write your next chapter, and you can work on your sleep. You can work on your nutrition, and you can just do 5 minutes of movement a day, and you're going to find that oxygen that starts flowing impacts you here. It impacts you here. Your whole body responds to just a few minutes a day of movement, which it seems daunting, but that's one of the things that we do. So yeah, and I think part of my mission is, it's a quote by Stuart Scott, but I'm going to go ahead and share it. And it doesn't have to be cancer. Whatever it is you're battling, it doesn't have to be cancer. You can replace this word, but you beat cancer by how you live, why you live, and the way in which you live. And so whatever it is, that battle, you beat that obstacle by how, why, and the way that you live. And so I want to give people back their power, because they just have not, they just don't realize that they have what it takes to dictate their life after cancer.
We have a comment here from the audience. You are a true gem, Teresa. Thank you for being here and sharing your story.
Thank you.
I know. Thank you for taking the time to engage with this discussion. Honestly, this is why we do what we do, because we don't want the world to watch this. We want the right people, to be attached to these videos that we put out every single Friday, because these are real discussions with real people. Honestly, Teresa, you are the hero. You are a champion. You're a queen in your world, in our world, because you are helping so many people. And I know this is just the beginning for you. Mm-hmm. There's so much more coming your way. Mm-hmm. What's next?
Oh boy, what's next? So in the process of what I've been doing here, I have, and I've got the work that I'm doing as an author and a ghostwriter. And so one of the first steps in the process in working with survivors is helping them to bring their story to the surface. And I am finding that a lot of people feel like they have a book in them and that they want to write their stories. And so it's not that I'm moving away from what I'm doing as a life after cancer coach, but it's that I'm highlighting this aspect of it. And there might be some people who feel like they've got their health in order, but they want to write their story. And so as an author mentor, as a writing strategist, I think this is part of my purpose, my turning pain into purpose. Imagine if people worked on their legacy and kind of, if they put that into a book and they left that for their children, or they left that roadmap for their clients or the community at large. And so yeah, that's what's next. I'm super excited about it, because helping people birth their little book baby is so rewarding. So yeah, that's what I've got going on right now.
That's really, really exciting. I love that. We have one last question from the audience that we'll take right now. What are the tips you would like to share with people undergoing treatments of cancer?
Well, I think going with the theme of this discussion, one tip I think is whether it's journaling or talking. I know that not everybody journals, but finding a way to process that pain in the moment and not tucking it away for later. I'll deal with it later, or thinking they're going to tuck it away and it's going to stay there. At some point that pain is going to surface, or whatever it is that just causes a little bit of anxiety going through the journey. Aside from that, I think your typical, what your doctors are recommending, which is getting enough sleep. It is getting some movement in your day. I didn't move enough. If I could redo, I would have pushed through the fatigue and got a little bit more movement when I went through my journey. Because then I gained some weight, which is part of the process too, because of what they put in your body. And then that impacted my mental health, because that changed the way my clothes fit. And, so it's just being proactive. And even though you don't feel like it, doing the things that we should be doing anyway, whether we're facing cancer or not. I hope that helps give a little bit of a roadmap for people on the fly.
Yeah. I there's a lot of wisdom in that. These are simple tips, but they're honestly profound if you put them into practice. I second that. If there's one message that you could leave with someone that's perhaps tuned in, or people that are going to come back and watch this, what would it be, Teresa?
Oh boy. I think we each of us, we each have a purpose. I think we each have a story to share. I think there's someone out there who needs to hear our stories, um, and to see our roadmaps, because when we go through whatever it is we go through, that journey, we are leaving a trail, a path for others. And
Yeah.
so it's to value your own story, to not be afraid to talk about it, to not be afraid to share it, because when you do, you find a tribe of people, you find people who could really use your light and your guidance to help them through that darkness, through that shadow, and to help them to go back to the beginning, step out from behind that shadow, to reclaim that pen. So just know that you have the power to do that.
Beautiful. Let's reclaim that pen. Love it. Love it.
Yes.
Where can people contact you, Teresa?
I have, let's see, I've got my website, teresaalesch.com. And I am also, like, if you find me on Instagram, it's simple Teresa, Teresa Alesch. It is my handle. And then I wanted to share, there it is. If you go to Instagram, you'll find that my link bio, it's lnk.bio / Teresa Alesch. lnk.bio / Teresa Alesch. Geez, I can't even say my own name. But you can get there through Instagram. So find me on Instagram and message me there. And I would love to continue the conversation with anyone who wants to chat.
Love it. Thank you so much, Teresa. Truly want to take a moment to say we are humbled and grateful here at Reach Out Together to have you here with us. Do you know what our logo stands for? I don't know if you can see it. It's right at the back.
I know what you're talking about. No, please share.
So it's basically, two palms put together in sign language. This means together.
Oh.
And we have the color orange in the logo, because in color healing therapy, orange is used to bring out feelings of warmth and happiness. And our vision at Reach Out Together is to heal the world together, conversation by conversation, community by community. And I truly believe we did that here today. This is such an important topic, and you were so graceful in your sharing. We really appreciate you. I know the team was very excited to hear from you. So we're going to have our meeting right after this, and I'm really excited to hear the feedback. But thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're incredible.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for all you are doing, and thoughts and prayers with you as you come upon, your brother's, anniversary date. So I will be thinking of you and sending you love and light. So thank you.
Thank you. Accepting all love and accepting more light. Thank you. We're in this together.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone. Bye for now. Until